I received a communication from a mother who is fairly experienced with loving and teaching. Her son, Timmy, is 4 years old. So she said, today Timmy picked up my phone and started playing with it. And I explained to him for what seemed like the millionth time that he can't just take things that don't belong to him, not without asking. And as I was talking to him, I got this idea about a way to teach him. I picked up his watch, which was on the floor or wherever, and I said, this is my watch. I can do whatever I want to with it. And he started to get kind of upset, but he was kind of half laughing at what I was saying because I was taking his watch, but he knew I was playing so he could see that it was absurd. I asked him how it felt when I did that, when I simply took his watch without permission. And then I asked him if he would rather that I just take his watch or if he'd prefer that instead I asked him, Timmy, can I look at your watch or use it or whatever? At first, he said he still wanted to take my phone anyway. He saw the watch analogy, but sometimes kids will see a metaphor and go, not good enough, I'm going to do it my way anyway. So I just began to take more of his favorite things from his room and put them in a basket to take with me when I left the room. I put my phone on the table and I said, Timmy, you can take my phone if you want to, but if you do, I will start taking your things too. And then I just left him in the room and I took the basket of his stuff with me. I took my phone too. A couple of minutes later, he came back, sat down next to me, and he said, Mommy, I won't do that anymore. Now, this is Mom still speaking. I just need to be consistent about this stuff. He can't take stuff that isn't his and do whatever he wants with it. So, did I teach him the right thing? Was the question that Mom had. It's not a terrible answer. It worked in the short term when he said, I won't do that anymore. It works better than most parents do. You didn't have any obviously angry outburst as you used to do, so congratulations. You did get him thinking about taking things that are not his, but let's look at a few of the details, and I'm going to make suggestions about how they would tend to work out over time. Because whether something you do with a child works for 3 minutes doesn't count for much. Let's see if we can learn from this. So you, Mom, you said, I explained to him for what seems like the millionth time that he can't take things that don't belong to him without asking. Think for a second. Relax, don't feel criticized. There is no way, none, that we can say or think the words, quote, for what seems like the millionth time, end quote, without feeling some irritation. There's just no way to do it. There's no way you'd say, I've told you a million times. So you would have come across irritated to some degree, maybe less than before, but children are sensitive to any irritation. 2, and then you taught a lesson of what seems remarkably like, actually exactly like, retaliation rather than loving and teaching. You said, so what if I took your stuff? And then you did take his stuff. And yeah, it makes a point. After you said that, he did then say that he wouldn't use your stuff anymore. But is it a loving point? If we teach a good principle, but we do it in an unloving way, what's the overall effect? If I teach you that 2 + 2 is 4, but I'm screaming at you while I do it, you may learn that it's 4, but you may suffer PTSD for the rest of your life and never put things in groups of 4. Who knows? Is it a loving, lasting lesson? Your point was, I'll take your stuff. How do you like that? True, he wouldn't. But the truth isn't enough. The truth in this way doesn't come across as loving. And the way you did this, your child was actually the leader of the interaction. He takes, you take. He takes, you take. Notice, he started the interaction. You're not leading. So what could you do instead? Just to improve on what you did. I'm not telling you it was bad. Showing you a way that is more effective and for longer. Let's go back to Timmy playing with your phone. Does he know that he's not supposed to play with your phone without asking? Yes, he does, because in your words, you've told him a million times. So why do we keep repeating ourselves? We repeat ourselves over and over again, and in the process, we do our children's emotional work for them as we nag them over and over so they don't have to do any of their own work and just remember and actually implement it, implant it in their souls. When we say to a child, what are you doing? And they're obviously doing something selfish or unloving or otherwise wrong. And they go, what do you mean? I smile because I've watched parents do this. The child is gaming you. The child is, it's like they don't do it, I don't think, intentionally. I don't believe that. But it's a game they play. Let's see if I can get her to say it again. And now, I don't have to admit it, and I feel less responsible for living that way. That's why they game us. So instead, I'm suggesting that you require that he express his understanding of it. You might say when he's playing with your phone, for example, Timmy, what are you doing? Now, it's very likely in the beginning, as you're first teaching him this, that he'll say the favorite answer of a child to anything when you're referring to something they're doing wrong. I don't know. Is your head on your shoulders? I don't know. Or he might actually say, I'm playing with the phone, but he'll avoid being wrong. He won't say, I'm playing with the phone, I didn't ask. So then you say, so whose phone is it? So you're teaching, and with the right tone, it's loving and teaching. He then says, your phone. And then you continue. You can remember a lot of times when you have been kind and thoughtful. This is you talking to Timmy. You love being like that, kind and thoughtful, because it's just happier. It's who you are. Who you are is kind and thoughtful. If you were being kind and thoughtful right now, what would you do, or what would you have done before you played with my phone? Just enough emphasis on the word my to help him with the answer, not my as in negative and browbeating. And he may not get the answer right off, so you keep going and explaining and asking questions until he gives you the answer, because I promise you, if he pretends not to know the answer, he's gaming you. He does know the answer. He knows he's supposed to do it because you've taught him a million times. Now, to everybody who's listening, and not just a response to this particular mother, the subject of this lesson is lots of things. Actually, I should have said the subjects of this lesson: loving and teaching, responsibility, the child being responsible for what he's already been taught. That's a form of responsibility. I've taught you a thing, it's now your responsibility to remember it. Kindness, and another principle, I'm sure there's a much longer list, ownership. And just on this particular occasion, we're going to emphasize that particular one. Another way to teach the same lesson. So the parent says, when we drive somewhere together, what car do we use? Now see, you've made it a thought exercise. You're not making it about them. You're not blaming them. You're kind of trapping them, and they kind of sense it, but they go along with it because it's not obvious yet. So you say, Timmy, when we drive somewhere together, what car do we use? And you keep going until the child arrives at some variation on, well, we go in our car. It's kind of obvious. So then you, as the parent, say, do we sneak down the street and steal somebody else's car? No. In fact, they might look at you quizzically like, are you okay today? Because the answer is so obvious. Then you say, well, what if we steal it, but we return it later? Now is it okay? No. Every child will get this right. And then you ask the important question, why is it not okay? And the child will come up with some variation on, because it's just wrong. It's wrong to take things that are not ours. And then we explain that when we take other people's things, it's wrong. Not wrong as in evil, doesn't make us a bad person. Wrong as in unloving. Anything that's unloving and irresponsible is wrong. It's unloving because the other person's not going to like you taking their car, even if it's for a short period of time. What if they need it right then? Actually, what if they just look outside their window and they panic because it's stolen? It's unloving because the other person wouldn't like it. And it's irresponsible because we take the ownership, which is a form of responsibility, from another person. That's a little subtle, but listen to it again and you'll get it. Now, more of how to teach ownership. Timmy has toys that are his, and his brother has to ask before he can use Timmy's toys. Mom has a phone that is hers. Everybody understands the principle of ownership. They really do. Watch two little kids fight over what is fair in ownership. Some things are owned by mom and dad together, but it's understood, it might have been said out loud, it might not, that everybody can use them if they're not abusive. For example, mom and dad own the carpet, the floors, the roof, and even the beds that the kids sleep in. But everybody understands that there's this kind of implicit permission that everybody gets to use those things that they don't particularly own. It matters to kids to understand this. Owning things themselves, even just a few things in the beginning, helps them to feel responsible. Because if you own a thing, you have to take care of it. If you own a thing and you lose it, that was your responsibility. If you own a thing, you have first right to the thing. It's important that kids understand that things are theirs. And it helps a child, when he owns a thing, to feel important. Important in the sense of that they matter enough to own something, that they have a place in the world, that they have things that are theirs. Not in the sense of if you own more things, then you matter more. And you're going to make that clear to a child. You may have fewer toys than your friend at school. That doesn't make you less important. They enjoy the feeling of owning and being responsible. And we need to explain all that to them, that when they own a thing, they're responsible. And that then they need to respect the right of other people to own things. See? You first carefully explain the advantages and the blessings and the sense of power and worth that come from them owning things. Well, other people get the same right, and you take it from them when you take their things without asking. Now, what if a sibling does take something that Timmy owns? To every parent, relax, because this is what starts so many fights. And if you're not relaxed as you hear this, you're not going to be able to teach it relaxed. Partially, it depends on their age. So I'm going to use just two examples. First, let's suppose that Timmy is older than the sibling who takes the thing. So the younger sibling takes Timmy's thing. Timmy doesn't like it. Here's your opportunity to love and teach. You teach Timmy about ownership, like we've already illustrated. It's his thing. He's responsible for it. He gets to have it. You say, it's yours. You have a right to use it. But, you need to say this, is your ownership worth insisting on exercising your right if it causes conflict with a small child? Yes, we have a right. It's like when you pull up to a four-way stop. And I pull up to the four-way stop at exactly the same time as the person on my left. Who has the right to go through the intersection first? I do. But what if the other person steals that right from me, just like taking a toy from a child, and pulls out into the intersection first? Oh, I could demand my right and pull through the intersection anyway, but now we have a needless and, I must say, rather foolish accident, because just because I have a right doesn't always make it wise to exercise it. This is a little subtle to explain to a child, but you can do it. Yes, you have the right to take that toy back from your brother, but we're also happier when we're loving. So is it worth it? And you explain to the kid, to Timmy, remember he's the older child here, you have other toys. It's not like this is the only one. You don't have to play with that ball right now. And your younger sibling is 3 and is going to get tired of playing with that particular toy in about a minute and a half. People are more important than things. Now, this particular video answer is pretty jam-packed with principles, so you might have to listen to it twice. There's all kinds of things here I'm giving you to teach your children about ownership and when to exercise their right to own. So you say to your child, think about all that before you decide to insist on using a particular toy. But you don't force Timmy to share. If the little kid came up and took it out of Timmy's hand, you explain, we're going to get to the younger child in a minute. You don't just say to Timmy, oh, well, too bad, he's just a little child, so you have to let him use it. Well, you just took all the power out of the word ownership, didn't you? We say, this is yours, and then we tell them they have to give it to their brother. I can't count how many times in public I've seen a parent say to a child, share that with your brother. And I'm thinking, he might give it to his brother, but he's not learning sharing. He's just learning that you're bigger than he is. And you explain to Timmy, usually you just wait and relax. But if Timmy does insist, he can take the toy, and you need to support him by reminding the sibling, the younger one, that the toy is Timmy's, and that the younger sibling has other toys too. Are you seeing how this idea of ownership is consistent throughout and is tempered on occasion by things like age, being loving, having a zero tolerance for anger in the home, as we've talked about in the parenting training. It's tempered, but you never force a child to give up what's his. So see what you're doing? Loving and teaching, so that Timmy can make an informed, responsible, and loving choice instead of just reflexively responding in anger to his younger brother, pushing him down and jerking the toy out of his hand, which is what commonly happens. That's the first example. Promised you 2. Second, what if Timmy is the younger child? Again, you love and teach both of them. You teach young Timmy, just like you would teach Timmy's younger sibling, that the toy is not his, and it's not kind or loving or happy to take it. Now, if the child is 14 months old, this is just going to go right over their head, and you just distract the 14-month-old by doing whatever. Put them in the shower. That'll change their attention to something else. And you don't make Timmy. It's best if you cannot grab the toy from the younger child. He still has to give it up, but you keep talking to him until he gives it to his older sibling. If you do have to remove it from the younger child's hand because it's owned by the older child, well, that might have to happen. You teach the older sibling, who's just been robbed by the younger sibling, Timmy, that sometimes little kids just don't understand ownership. Like when a 16-month-old grabs something out of your hands, they have no idea. Anything they see is theirs in their world. And the younger kid's not going to use it for that long. So this was a fairly complicated, drawn out, but really helpful discussion of how ownership and responsibility and loving and choice and consequences and freedom and age and all of that play together. In summary, children do need things that are theirs, things that they own, that they don't have to share. Sometimes they benefit from not sharing. They need that sense of ownership. It makes them feel like individuals. And sometimes they benefit most from sharing with other people, because from that they learn to be loving. It's all about learning and making choices, not about the sharing or not sharing of a particular object or about fairness or justice. It's being loving and being responsible.